This is the Microschool Minute, your weekly dose of microschooling news and events.
In this week's edition of the Microschool Minute, at the national level, Linda McMahon's confirmation hearing for Secretary of Education highlighted her vision of downsizing the Department of Education and redirecting resources toward teachers rather than bureaucracy. She proposed moving the Office for Civil Rights to the Department of Justice, sparking debate over potential risk to student protections. McMahon emphasized a back-to-basics approach, focusing on reading and math, which some view as necessary to address learning gaps, while others argue it could neglect broader educational needs. McMahon's vision reflects a shift towards decentralizing education policy, emphasizing foundational skills, while positively impacting equity initiatives. This debate over school Project 2025, driven by members of the Heritage Foundation and influential figures linked to Trump's first administration, aimed to reshape United States education through a conservative lens. Key contributors include Russell Vaught and Paul Dance, supported by networks like the State Policy Network, advocating for corporatized school choice models, including federal ESAs and tax credit programs benefiting private institutions as well as edtech companies. The United States Supreme Court's decision to hear St. Isidore of Seville Catholic Virtual School versus Drummond could redefine the legality of religious schools funded by public money. This case questions whether public funds can support schools with religious affiliations, potentially blurring the lines between public education and religious instruction. If the court rules in favor of St. Isidore, it could set a precedent for religious charter schools nationwide. The case follows significant historical rulings such as Espinoza versus Montana Department of Revenue in 2020, which allowed religious schools access to public scholarship funds. A favorable ruling for St. Isidore would expand these precedents. This case has far-reaching implications for educators, policymakers, and families as well, potentially transforming the landscape of charter schools. The decision could influence the distribution of public funds and raise questions about religious freedom and educational equity, making it a pivotal moment in American educational policy. Denver Public Schools has filed a groundbreaking lawsuit to challenge the Trump-era policy allowing immigration enforcement at sensitive locations, including schools. DPS argues this policy endangers student safety and educational equity, particularly affecting immigrant communities. The lawsuit seeks to reinstate protections that ensured schools remain safe spaces, free from immigration-related disruptions. For over 30 years, sensitive locations policies protected schools, places of worship, and medical facilities from enforcement actions. DPS contends that the policy reversal undermines this legacy, increasing fear and decreasing attendance among immigrant students. North Dakota lawmakers are debating a wave of education savings account bills aimed at expanding school choice. These proposals would allow public funds to be used for private schooling, homeschooling, and other educational expenses such as microschooling, sparking debate about equity in public school funding. Key bills include Senate Bill 2400, offering flat-rate funding to all students, and House Bill 1607, reallocating per-pupil state funding for private education. Next, we turn to Iowa, where Iowa's House passed a 2.25% state supplemental aid increase for public schools, sparking debate about the adequacy of education funding. Republicans argue that it balances support for schools with fiscal responsibility, while Democrats are claiming that it falls short of meeting rising costs, calling for a 5% increase to prevent budget cuts. The debate centers on addressing inflation, operational expenses, and post-pandemic challenges. Funding includes a one-time $22.6 million boost for per-pupil cost and transportation equity for rural districts. However, critics worry about outdated materials, overcrowded classrooms, and low teacher salaries. Over 140 districts may face property tax hikes to meet basic obligations, contradicting promises of reducing local tax burdens. The debate highlights the state's ongoing struggle to balance educational investment with fiscal constraints. As the proposal moves to the Senate, the decision will shape the future of public education in Iowa, impacting students, teachers, and communities statewide. Idaho also faces a legislative battle over two competing school voucher bills, House Bill 93 and Senate Bill 1025. HB 93 proposes tax credits up to $5,000 per student for educational expenses, prioritizing low-income families. SB 1025 expands the existing Empowering Parents program, increasing grants for private school tuition. The debate reflects ideological divides within Idaho's Republican Party over how to balance educational choice and public accountability. House Bill 93 narrowly passed the House committee but faces skepticism in the Senate, while SB 1025 is viewed as a more cautious approach but lacks widespread support. The legislative standoff reflects broader national debates on school choice and funding equity. As lawmakers negotiate, the outcome will impact Idaho's educational landscape. Wyoming's House Bill 199, the Wyoming Freedom Scholarship Act, proposes expanding the state's education savings account program, removing income caps, and increasing funding per student. The bill has sparked intense debate over constitutional principles, educational equity, and resource allocation. Despite passing the House, it faces legal challenges and opposition from public education advocates. The outcome could redefine school choice in Wyoming and influence similar debates nationwide. House Bill 199's journey highlights the challenges of balancing educational innovation with constitutional safeguards. Texas Governor Greg Abbott is prioritizing education reform, advocating for school vouchers, teacher pay raises, and increased public school funding. Senate Bill 2 proposes education savings accounts, offering up to $10,000 per student for private education, sparking debate over resource allocation. Abbott also aims to raise teacher salaries and invest over $4.85 billion in public schools to address post-pandemic learning loss. The agenda reflects a push for parental choice and educational flexibility, aligning with broader school choice movements. In Tennessee, Governor Bill Lee signed the Education Freedom Scholarship Program into law, launching one of the most ambitious school choice initiatives in the United States. The program offers $7,200 per student for private education expenses, aiming to serve up to 20,000 students in its first year alone. Lee fast-tracked the law to be operational by the 2025 school year, emphasizing the need for educational options across the state. However, the rapid timeline does present significant challenges, including staffing shortages and uncertainty over the program's vendor. Concerns about mismanagement, technical issues, and insufficient family support resources are mounting. The state is under pressure to implement the program smoothly while maintaining public trust and accountability. If successful, Tennessee's program could serve as a model for other states considering similar initiatives. However, the rush rollout and logistical hurdles could also make it a cautionary tale. West Virginia faces a public education crisis. Governor Patrick Morrisey proposed a pay raise to address teacher retention and improve classroom outcomes, but the state's $400 million budget deficit complicates funding these initiatives. Mesa Public Schools, Arizona's largest school district, faces a $16.7 million budget deficit due to declining enrollment, rising costs, and the state's expanded Empowerment Scholarship Accounts program, with nearly 90% of its budget allocated to staff salaries and benefits. The district plans to eliminate 189.2 positions to balance its finances. Additionally, increasing utility, supply, and health insurance costs are straining the district's budget. The district's financial struggles underscore the impact of shifting enrollment patterns and highlight the need for sustainable funding strategies. Amid financial distress for many charter schools, Chicago's Noble network of charter schools demonstrates resilience through strategic refinancing. By selling $27.4 million in revenue refunding bonds, Noble reduced debt service cost, freeing up funds for student initiatives. The refinancing achieved 3.96% yield, significantly lower than previous rates. Noble's proactive financial strategy, including cost-cutting and investment in essential areas, positions it as a model of sustainability in the charter school sector. CFO Nikita Johnson-White emphasizes the importance of strategic foresight and adaptability in navigating financial challenges. Education savings accounts, or ESAs, are expanding rapidly, offering families control over educational funding. However, this growth brings accountability changes, as seen with student-first technologies. Criticized for technical issues and delays, this management risk, undermining trust in ESA programs, are creating financial burdens for families and impacting educational access. States scaling up ESA initiatives face pressure to balance growth with transparency, efficiency, and equity. The stakes are high, as missteps could jeopardize the future of school choice. The Center for American Progress called for federal regulation of microschools, arguing that they operate in a regulatory vacuum. However, this overlooks existing state and local regulations that already challenge microschools, including licensing and zoning requirements. Their call for a unified federal definition risks stifling the innovation and flexibility that make microschools appealing to families. According to the National Microschooling Center, CAP also misrepresented data on microschool accessibility, omitting that 40% of microschools serve below average income families. Critics argue CAP's recommendations misunderstand the grassroots nature of microschools and could impose unnecessary bureaucratic burdens. The debate underscores tensions between regulatory oversight and educational innovation. Advocates urge policymakers to modernize state frameworks to support microschool growth while avoiding restrictive federal control. The outcome will influence the future of microschools as a flexible, community-driven educational option. Critics argue school choice programs defund public schools, but data from Utah's Fits-All Scholarship Program suggests otherwise. Public schools retain local property tax revenue even when students leave for private options, increasing per-student funding for remaining pupils. Utah's public schools received $7.7 billion in 2023 with significant reserves, while the school choice program represents less than 1% of these funds. This financial model challenges claims that school choice undermines public education. Instead, it raises questions about public school spending priorities, as significant reserves coexist with stagnant teacher salaries and inadequate classroom resources. Activate School, located near Portland, Oregon, is the focus of this week's Microschool Showcase. At Activate, they are redefining elementary education with an inclusive approach for neurodivergent and neurotypical learners. Its curriculum emphasizes dyslexia support, hands-on learning, and extended recess, fostering creativity and confidence. This model promotes a supportive environment where every child's uniqueness is celebrated. The school's focus on tailored education and community building reflects the growing appeal of microschools as flexible, student-centered learning environments. By addressing diverse learning needs, Activate School demonstrates how innovative educational models can empower students and inspire a love of learning. If you know of a microschool that deserves a shout out, drop a comment and let us know about the work that they're doing. Thank you for tuning in to the Microschool Minute, your weekly review of microschooling news and events. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you'd like to support us, consider leaving a review. Until next week, happy microschooling.